It might help if I add myself to the live stream. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I was just getting a couple of things squared away and going through my notes. Love to hear from you if you are on, so feel free to chat or whatever you'd like to do. This is actually our celebration for 1,400 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and I've also opened it up for those of you who are more comfortable on Facebook to come and join us as well. Facebook and YouTube you guys are so important to me wherever you follow me. So thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me today. This is kind of a formal presentation, even though I have my trusted note cards that I've been doing for previous live streams. I actually did a full slide presentation that I'm going to put up, and we're talking about today about survival skills and how the Human Design Spleen Center shows us what survival skills we have at our access as human beings in this day and age where we're all sheltering in place, or most of us are, and we're keeping an eye on this virus that we don't understand. I think it's really important to kind of get a big picture understanding of how we are as humans genetically hardwired to deal with fear, survival fear in particular, and transcend that to become more vibrant, vital, enlivened, courageous, full of life, healthy, and all of those things that the Spleen Center embodies. Hello, Masumik. Hello, Robin. Hello, Spirited Image. Thank you for coming on. Oh, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. I like Spirited Image as well. And you've invited a couple of friends. Yes, I was guided, even though my mind said, okay, this is a thing that we're going to do as a complementary thing. I really sat with my intuition and my guides for a while and fought with them, but I was guided to kind of step out there on the edge and actually be open to some donations at this time. So I put up my PayPal me link for those of you who want to donate. And also, if you don't have the funds, or you don't feel that that's something that you're guided to do at this point, I'd really appreciate you considering sharing my work with other people, either through your social media channels, or if you have your own audience. I'd love it if you could share this particular video or any videos or blog posts or my website, or just talk about me at dinner parties. That works too. So awesome. Hi, Vikram. Hi, Dorothy. Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for showing up. So I'm going to just go ahead and fumble through some of the technology here. I kind of tried it out with a live stream earlier this week, but I'm going to try it again. It worked the last time, so let's go on in here and talk about the survival skills of the spleen. Now, I want to just share my slides, so bear with me. Because I have to walk through this process again. Okay, and this is what I have to do with that. I have to actually open it up and put it in presentation mode. Bear with my technology issues here. It's always in real time with me, so here we are. And now I can't see I can't see you guys. Where are you? Hold on. Let me make sure I have everything up here. Okay, I see it. You know what's going to happen here is I'm actually not going to be able to see you and see the screen at the same time. So just trust me. Um, just continue to chat if you want. And we will save some time at the end to chat. We're also going to have a drawing for 3 different prizes at the end as part of our celebration. So you didn't have to be present to win. I'm going to announce the names of the winners. We'll take down the slides at the end, and I'll pull names out of the hat. And I will, those of you who have signed up for that prior to this, I will also send you a follow-up email, because I think everybody needs to be a winner. And usually what I usually do, and what I'll do this time, is give you some sort of a special offer for some of my services or courses. So that is the reason why you want to sign up ahead of time. It also puts you on my list for upcoming news and special events. So, and these things being one of those things. And also I sometimes send out thought-provoking newsletters. All right, so welcome to the survival skills of the spleen, also known as how humanity is hardwired to survive. So what we're going to focus on today is a general exploration of the spleen center and its gates from the perspective of how we're hardwired as a species to survive. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just some of the basic mechanics and background of human design, the nutshell version. Let's not get into all of the deep dive details, but in case you just kind of stumbled upon this because you were interested in the survival of humanity and you've never heard of human design, we'll talk a little bit about that. This isn't a presentation or an event where we're going to go deep diving into what your chart means, but we may touch upon some of the high points that are relevant in our discussion. So just to give you guys a background, for those of you who have never seen a human design chart before, what you're looking at here is the blueprint for humanity's genetic potentials. And when we're looking at genetic potentials, we're looking at the poetic description of the 64 codons of DNA as they are described and understood through the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And these are the numbers that are on either side of the human design chart. And they are transposed onto your particular chart. And the numbers stay in the same place, the hexagrams stay in the same place, and they wire up the representatives of our energy centers, which show us how the energies that we have to function from. So in a nutshell, this is how we're hardwired, both individually and as a human species, when we look at the totality of the human design chart, to function in a whole and integrated way. We all carry a piece in our individual designs for a piece that is prominent in our own genetic hardwiring, in our own themes of our lineage and our history, and what we've carried forth in our mind and our body at this time, that contributes to the overall holism and integration of humanity, the overall picture and program that we're moving through as humans on this planet. So there is a way. We usually look at the human design chart in the individual way to show you how you're aligned with or how you can align more with what you're here to contribute contribute and what you're here to receive. But we can also look at the chart, and in particular, today we're going to be looking at the brown triangle on the left-hand side of the chart, known as the spleen center, for what we're sort of encoded with as humans that ensures our physical survival. So here is the spleen center, this little brown triangle on the left-hand side that I've circled in blue. And the spleen center's general functions are centered around physical vitality, primal survival, alertness in the moment, knowing what's safe and what's not. And it is an awareness center. We have several awareness centers in the human design body graph. And by awareness, what I mean is that, well, specifically with the spleen center, it's about awareness of what is safe and what is not in the moment, having that awareness right now of what it takes to survive in various different ways. And it is not a center that presents itself or presents the energy for taking action. So it's about knowing in the moment, knowing what's safe, knowing in a nonverbal way sometimes, in a primal way, what is necessary for survival. So there are 7 gates that come off of the spleen, and each one of these is a representative of one of the hexagrams of the I Ching, which is which is a genetically encoded theme that relates to the way the spleen energy is experienced. So we all experience these themes in varying ways, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of that so that those of you who are wondering how this applies to your design can kind of have a big picture overview of this. You know, so a lot of times we look at these white areas in our chart, and or people look at the white areas in the chart and think, oh, I don't have that energy. I don't have the capacity to function in those types of ways. Everybody has, getting back to the spleen center, everybody has the capacity to know what it takes to survive. The way that you experience that can either be consistent or inconsistent. And let me skip ahead here. Okay. Oh, I missed one. Okay. If your spleen center is brown, is colored in, and you may have a channel which is like 2 of these gates together that define this center, then this means that you have a consistent way of filtering spleen energy through those specific defined gates. And in this case, you are actually offering those themes out to others. You're actually radiating that energy out to others. Now, if you have, hold on, let me find it. An undefined or an open spleen. And I'm not going to make the distinction in this presentation right now because we're not talking about specific charts. But if your spleen center is white, whether it has gates hanging off of it or whether it doesn't have any gates hanging off of it, you have inconsistent access to the spleen energy and its survival themes. That doesn't mean that you don't know how to survive. It doesn't mean you're screwed because you don't have those survival instincts hardwired within you. It means that you can experience survival themes sometimes like in an amplified way, sometimes where it feels like you know how to survive or what it takes to survive on steroids. But it comes and it goes, and it's inconsistent depending on who you're with, what kind of astrological transits are, what the astrological transits are bringing you in terms of these themes of these gates and what you're taking in from your environment. So it's not that you don't know how to survive. Sometimes you will know in a flash that comes and goes in a very, very strong way what others are feeling in terms of survival, or in terms of, let's go back here, in terms of fear, which is the predominant low vibrational experience of the spleen center and its gates. You will know that or feel that in a very, very strong way if this spleen center is white or undefined. So that's just a little bit about the mechanics of how the spleen center works. For those of you who are looking at your chart, I just want you to relax now and put your chart down, because we're going to talk about these themes of the spleen center. We're going to just talk briefly about the fear themes. And then we're going to really focus our attention on the higher experience of these genetically encoded themes within us. And this will, hopefully, my hope is that this will give you a real understanding and a real optimistic look maybe at where we're going in terms of our survival as humans on the planet, because I know that there is a lot of fear, and I know you guys know there's a lot of fear circulating on the planet right now about the future, the sustainability of our Earth, the virus, that the pandemic that has spread the globe, the things that we don't know about, the things that are uncertain in our future financially, in our collective and group financial futures, in our personal financial futures. There's all kinds of fear right now. And those fears, when they have to do with survival, is what happens when the mind hijacks the body. So in human design, we have a term called the not self, or the not self mind. And this is sometimes known in the Buddhist tradition as the monkey mind. It's what happens when we're not fully relaxed and we're allowing our thoughts to sort of take over our landscape, take over our awareness, so that we can't really fully feel, in this case with the spleen, the stillness that we need and the alertness that we need in order to take the steps that will ensure our future. So these are the general themes that these particular gates can express. These are the themes that you can experience through these particular gates. And they're universal to all of us when we're looking at this in this generalized way. With the gate 50, it's the fear of responsibility, the fear of taking on too much responsibility, or getting out of balance because we're taking responsibility on for that is not our responsibility to take on. In the 32, it's the fear of failure, the fear that if we that we can't recognize what needs to be done, what needs to be transformed, what needs to happen in order to realize material success, to survive in the material world. And material, by material I mean business, I mean the nuts and bolts of how we come together to create resources, all of those things. There's this fear of failure that can crop up around those things in the 32. In the 44, it has to do with fear of the past. And the 44 is very much about is about the lineage and the history that we carry into our life. And this is so rich that I don't really want to take the time to go that deeply into this. But there is this fear sometimes when we are not with the right people, not in the right environments, that takes over, that has to do with being afraid that the past is going to repeat itself. This can show up, and I'm going to get a little metaphysical here, because I know a lot of you are in that realm. If you've watched intuitives and psychics and metaphysical people talk about the fall of Atlantis, and how the legend of Atlantis, and how Atlantis sunk because of um, the imbalances that happened around technology. And I've had a lot of metaphysical people express to me that they feel like they're reincarnated from Atlantis to kind of stop that, so that we don't repeat the past. And we can kind of see that in our modern history, where we see the rise of Nazism and things like that. And there's this alarm about if we don't stop what we're doing or change what we're doing, we're going to go back and repeat the past that brought on World War II. And maybe this will bring on World War III. Who knows? That's in the fear of the future. So that's down here in the 57. So those are three: responsibility, failure, fear of responsibility, fear of failure, fear of the past. There's also fear of the future and fear of death in the 28 and the 57. And then in the 48 and the 18, there's the fear of inadequacy in the 48, and the fear of authority in the 18. So your mind can really play tricks on you. Your primitive mind, especially when you're on the midst of making a change, even if it's a positive change, can sort of take over and hijack what your body knows is true for itself. And the spleen center in particular is all about the function of the body and the body's truth in the moment. So what we're going to focus upon today are the survival themes. And I've taken my inspiration here from the gene keys. So if some of you are following Richard Rudd's work with the gene keys, you'll recognize some of these things if you've been reading his book or working with your hologenetic profile. And these are representative of some of the gift frequencies that Richard Rudd talks about, of these particular genetic themes that we all have programmed within us. So with the gate 50, instead of the fear of responsibility, it's about sharing responsibility to restore equilibrium. And in the gate 32, it's about keeping what works and throwing out the rest. In the 44, it's about working with your allies, teamwork. In the 18, it's about making corrections to the system. The 48, perfecting after the corrections are made, perfecting and sharing solutions for society. In the 28, it's about finding meaning in your struggle. And in the 57, it's about trusting your intuition. So these survival themes, as I call them, show us what's possible when we operate at a higher level. And this is what we're really going to focus upon today. What's possible when we transcend fear and we operate at this higher level. So we've talked about the mechanics. I skipped ahead there. So some of you may be asking, well, what does this have to do with like the traditional understanding of our human design body graphs of how we operate? So in a nutshell, I've boiled it down to this. When you live from your strategy and your authority, you stay in the flow. When you're in the flow, you find yourself with the right people and in the right environments that keep you safe. So getting back to whether or not you're defined or undefined and what that means for your personal survival and transcending fears, it's all about staying in the flow. So by looking at these higher aspects of these themes that these gates of the spleen bring us, it gives us access to some understanding of what's in our flow or how to get to our flow as we follow our strategy and authority. Now, if you're not aware of these terms of strategy and authority, you're invited to come to my website at sandyfreshy.com or look at some of my other basic videos if this intrigues you about strategy. But basically, strategy has to do with how you stay in your flow for your energy type. And I'm not going to go into all of that here, but all of us are one particular energy type in this system of human design. And each energy type has a strategy that keeps us out of resistance when we pay attention to it, when we work with it, so that we stay in the flow of our lives. And then when we're in that flow of our lives, opportunities come, people come, and that's when we need to make decisions about what actions we take. And that's when our authority comes into play. Our authority to know what's right for us, our process for knowing what our truth is, so that we continue to be with the right people and in the right environments that really reflect our truth and keep us in the flow of our life. So when we're in the flow of our life, that decreases our fear, that decreases our anxiety, and we're in the flow of our the way that we're here to survive and thrive. So the survival of humanity depends on 3 different skill sets. And this is what I'm referring to when I talk about the survival skills of the spleen gates. And so the survival of humanity depends on the 3 different skill sets. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes and I'm looking at looking at the slides and I lost my place. So let me go back. The survival skill of humanity depends on 3 different skill sets that can be understood through the human design circuitry of the spleen gates, which really explains what I have on my notes, which is about the various types of circuitry. So there are 3 different types of circuitry that can show us about what it takes to survive. So that's what I'm talking about these 3 different skill sets. So these 3 different types of circuitry are broken up, and there's sub-circuitry here that I'm not going to go into for you human design enthusiasts. I'm trying to keep it really simple, but it's broken up into the tribal circuitry, the collective circuitry, and the individual circuitry. The tribal circuitry is kind of on the inside. The gate 44, the gate 50, and the gate 32 make up this tribal circuitry that ensures the continuity and the success of families and communities. So that's what the themes of the tribal circuitry are all about, the continuity and success of families and communities. The collective circuitry, which is on the outside, and there's a reason why I jump from the inside to the outside, and you'll see as we move along in this information. The collective circuitry, which is on the outside, makes corrections and shares solutions for the good of society. So it's kind of like the outer shell. You know, the inside is about the tribe. It's about those who are closest to us, our close-knit communities, those types of things. And then the collective is kind of like the all of us, all of society, the global community, so to speak. And the themes here on the spleen have to do with making corrections and sharing solutions for the good of all. The individual circuitry, which is in between the tribal and collective circuitry, the 57 and the 28, those two gates, are the mutative energy that helps to change and evolve the way that both the tribe and the collective operate. So that's why I'm kind of saving it for last, because these are really two very, very powerful gates that point to the way that we exit out of these lower frequency vibrations and change and mutate and transform our relationship with survival to a higher level and a higher experience. So let's talk about the tribal themes first. The tribal themes have to do with the preservation of human life, caring for others, material resources, communal living, strong bonds and alliances. So again, this is kind of like the inner circle of taking care of our children, caring for the things that we create within our families and our communities, caring for those who are closest to us, sharing in community as opposed to sharing globally, communal understanding of mundane material life and what it takes to navigate the material world, the world of finances and business and exchange and food and coming together to create the kind of success that creates more resources to preserve our families and communities. It has to do with creating those strong bonds and alliances, not just for the purposes of raising our children, but also for the purposes of doing business and making money, those types of things. That, at least on this side of the chart where we're talking about what's running through the spleen. So you can also look at this as the energy for everyone sticking together. It's also a place where, in the strict sense, diversity isn't well tolerated. It's looked at, outsiders are looked at with suspicion. And the tribe, if you think of historically of different tribes upon the planet, indigenous tribes may be slow to adopt change. And the tribe has to kind of be absolutely sure and before it actually can adopt something new. So those are the themes of our tribal survival skills, or the themes of the tribal circuitry that lend itself to our ability to survive. Benjamin Franklin put it this way. This is a really great quote to sum all of those themes up. "We must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately." So we all have to stick together so that we don't get hung, because I think that's what he's talking about, probably in reference to the American Revolution or all of that, so that we don't get hung separately. So we have to stick together as a tribe so that we can survive. If you think about ancient hunter tribes that, everybody kind of stuck close and they didn't veer. You think of herds of animals, it's the same way. Animals on the plains of Africa stick to their own so that they survive. It's the same thing with the tribal mentality and what it takes to preserve our communities and our families. So here are the tribal survival skills. In the gate 50, it's about sharing responsibility to restore equilibrium. The 50, known as the gate of values and the cauldron, is about nurturing. It's the feminine aspect of upholding the values for survival. So not necessarily feminine in that emotional kind of way, because that's over on the other side of the chart in the emotional solar plexus, which is actually hardwired to the masculine aspect of what it takes to create a strong bonds within families and communities. But this feminine aspect is about upholding values. It's about teaching and passing along what works, the things that we hold dear, that that help to enrich our communities and our families. It's about, if you look at it from a hierarchical perspective, it's about following the rules because they work, and upholding your duties to enforce those rules or to live those rules because they work to keep the family and the tribe together. So when we look at this from a more the term Richard Rudd uses is the heterarchical perspective, as opposed to the hierarchical perspective, where the hierarchy is, somebody up at the top is in control. We're seeing now in our world that that's not working so well anymore. So we're moving into this place where globally and even within our families, where it's no longer the father that's the head of the household or the mother that's the head of the household. Children have more and more of a say in how things are done. It's no more about that top-down enforcement of the rules, but it's more about this hierarchical. We come together and we agree upon the rules. So within that, there's this necessity, if we're going to survive, that we all take responsibility for ourselves, and we share the responsibility of what it takes to hold our communities together in a very equal and balanced way. So that's a powerful skill for surviving, sharing that responsibility, people not taking too much responsibility or responsibility for others, and allowing the natural balance of responsibility of everyone owning their share of the responsibility to kind of take shape and bring harmony into our world. The 32 is known as duration. It's about having endurance, and the survival skill that is expressed here is keep what works and throw out the rest. So Richard talks in the Gene Keys about how this is about recognizing the rootstock, recognizing what endures. So and then cutting off the rest. So, cutting off the rest of the tree or the branch or whatever it is, so that you can graft something new onto it to create a transformation in a very within the tribe and within communities. So this is the place where there is this skill of endurance, this skill of recognizing what endures and being able to endure. And not getting in the potential of not getting caught up in this hesitation or ultra conservative fear, the fear that can show up as being ultra conservative when it's time to actually try something new, to graft something new on what is old and tried and true, and allow it to grow and flourish. So keep what works and throw out the rest. With the 44, the gate 44 is about recognizing your allies and engaging in teamwork. The gate 44 is the gate of alertness. In the I Ching, it's known as coming to meet, and I love that name, because it really is about kind of resolving your baggage from the past. If we're living in this higher aspect, if we're going to evolve and survive, each member of the tribe has to resolve their baggage from the past and come to meet with those that we are here to meet with. And in human design speak, it has to do with those who with our fractal lines. For those of you who are human design enthusiasts, you'll understand what I'm talking about with that. Those that we are kind of synchronized to meet through our soul energy, through our innate energy that we exude from our genetics, those that we are destined to meet through our past lives or our genetic history, and really being able to recognize who they are and then to come together with them and work as a team toward success in the material world, toward influencing others to adopt what it takes to be successful. So, share responsibility to restore equilibrium. Keep what works and throw out the rest. Recognize your allies and engage in teamwork. And this is so integral to what it takes for, on the tribal level, for us to really continue to evolve, survive, and thrive. So our collective themes, this is on the spleen side of the chart, this comes from the understanding circuit of the overarching collective circuitry. And the understanding circuit has to do with logic. So we're talking about the logical analysis of patterns, the repetition that refines the patterns, moving humanity safely forward, solutions for the greater good, and universal sharing. Now, down here in the asterisks, this is kind of like, if you haven't noticed, the asterisks are kind of like the, I don't know if you would call it the shadow side, but like maybe the restrictive aspects, especially when we're living out the fear side of these themes. So with the collective themes of the 18 and the 48, it can be about global conformity for the greater good. So, people kind of have to sacrifice their individuality for the greater good. And then what comes up for me as an example with that is, let's look at World War II. And how, soldiers, men sacrificed their lives, or potentially sacrificed their lives to go to war. Women left their homes to work in the factories to support the effort for the greater good. And never mind the families that you wanted to create, to build, the marriages you wanted to have, the kind of life that you would really ideally want to have as an individual. Everybody pulled together for the greater good. And we can kind of see this now globally, even though we're seeing it on a very local level with the coronavirus and the sheltering in place orders and stuff. At least here in the US, there's a lot of talk about, or consideration about, I think it's a really good idea to stay at home, because I may be able to survive this virus, but I might infect someone that I don't even know, who might not survive. And that's that consideration of, I'll endure a little bit of what it takes. I'll suppress some of my individuality so that the greater good can survive and thrive. Now, the other thing, and this is true of all of the gates of the spleen, and especially with the collective themes, because they tend to come off when you're living them or experiencing them as kind of cold, that this is not the side of the chart where the emotional intelligence resides. This is a side of the chart that has this instinctual animal intelligence, if you will. And so these themes are not informed by the emotional solar plexus or emotional intelligence. So that's why we have, all of the themes in the body graph. That's why we have all of our 64 codons of DNA, because some of them are activated and experienced through the evolution of emotional intelligence. So here are the collective survival skills. In the gate 18, It's about identifying what needs to be corrected so that vitality is restored to mankind. So the gate 18 is known as the gate of correction. And the I Ching name is called, the I Ching title is Work on What Has Been Spoiled. And that's really kind of key there, because with the 18, there is this propensity toward pointing out weaknesses in the system, finding out what doesn't work. It's kind of like that, for those of you who are familiar with the profiles, that line 3 understanding of what doesn't work, but really focusing in on, what needs to be changed here, what needs to be corrected, what do we need to try out, what do we need to test out, so that we restore the function of vitality to our society. So this is a place where when you're living in the fear of authority, where you may rebel against authority, or you may be afraid of authority as well, because you want to follow the rules so that so you don't get punished in a certain way. So we're pointing out the weaknesses of the system. The 18 has that capacity to do that. And in terms of authority, questioning authority and upholding human rights is the real strength and characteristic of the gate 18, of this skill of identifying what needs to be corrected so that vitality is restored to mankind. And we can kind of see this, the troubleshooters of the world the people who have their pulse on society can sometimes, a lot of times, point out where we're going wrong, where at least have their opinion about it, which is kind of related to this, but it's in the gate 17, just a little segue for you guys that are deep into design. But we have this ability, or we see this globally, where people point out, hey, this is not working. This is not working because people are suffering, because human rights are being trampled on. Why are the ones in power, holding the bulk of the wealth? Why are the top 1% holding the bulk of the wealth? These are all gate 18 themes, of these collective big picture questions about that zone in on what really needs to be corrected so that we can all thrive and we can all have joy, so that everybody enjoys the same rights and the same liberties across the board. The gate 48 shares solutions from a depth of understanding to move humanity forward. And one thing that I don't know that I emphasized when I talked about just the general themes of this aspect of the collective circuitry, but it is about sharing, and it is about the logical, not only the logical analytics, but it's also about the future, moving forward into the future, proving out patterns so that we can predict the future from what we see in the patterns that we're working with. So the gate 48 is known as the gate of depth. And it shows us that we have the capacity to dig deep over and over again and come up with solutions. So it's also known in the I Ching as the well. So think about that imagery of dropping your bucket into the well over and over and coming up with things that contribute to the solutions that you can share to further the vitality of mankind. It's also about both of these gates are about perfecting, about repetition, and in particular with the gate 48, there's this sense of the need to mentor people on their skills, and it's also about needing to have that depth of your solutions called out by others. And one thing I'll point out about all of these gates, as I said before, is that the spleen is not a motorized center, nor is it directly connected to the throat through these specific gates. So it's really something. It's really a projected kind of a center. Like all of the gates on here come from the projected channels. So when we look at projected channels, for those of you who are projectors, you know what I'm talking about here. You must wait because you don't have that oomph and energy to get things up and out on your own. You're waiting for those others to come and pull it out of you. And it's the same with this gate of depth, the gate of the 48. You know, you have, or there is this capacity with the 48 to really know deeply and to go deeply into and find those work and rework potential solutions that can be shared. But humanity, or the right people, have to be ready and ask for them in order for them to be effective. So those are the collective survival skills. And it can kind of be summed up by this, what Robert Collier, an American author, says: success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. So when we're looking at solutions for society, when we're looking at these survival skills that come from logic and analytics, we're talking about doing things over and over again, reworking, troubleshooting, finding the bugs, working them out, formulating new plans and new solutions that will eventually move us forward. But it's a day by day process. So here's how we evolve to survive. You know, we've talked about the tribal energy, the themes of the tribe, the survival skills that hold the tribe together, and we've talked about the survival skills that move society forward. You know, the tribal survival skills. The tribe slowly adopts solutions. The collective tests and perfects the solutions. Let's start there. The collective tests and perfects solutions. And then eventually the tribe slowly adopts those solutions, right? So this is, if these were the only two skill sets that we had for our survival, we would probably not evolve and adapt to change very easily. So in walks, oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you what Albert Einstein has to say about this. So according to Albert Einstein, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So in walks, the individual mutation, these skill sets, the survival skill sets from the individual circuitry. So, you know, the collective tests and perfects the solutions. And the tribe slowly adopts those solutions, sticks with the tried and true, sticks with what works that has been proven that works to raise your children and create income and money and all of those things. But the individual comes in and mutates. The individual circuitry is about changing and differentiating and creating new dynamics. So that's kind of how I like to see it, as its place within or between the tribe, which is on the inside with the gate 44, 50, and the 32, and the collective, which is on the outside of the 48 and the 18. So the individual themes are about individuality, living outside the box, mutation, transformation, the force for change. You know, all of these, and if you have any individual circuitry, you know that you're not designed to live in the box. You know that you're not really a communal person or one who is necessarily too concerned about the greater good of all, because that's not where your power is, right? And that's not where the power to mutate and change the way that we survive on the planet is as well, at least in my viewpoint in working this out. So the downside of this is that new things may or may not be the right thing. So just because these, these individual themes or these individual energies come up with something that is totally different from anything that's ever been experienced before, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to preserve our families and communities or our world at large. And there is a great deal of unpredictability and instability within these individual themes. Now, that's a byproduct of the creative process as well. And one of the things I didn't put on here about the individual circuitry is that there's a large amount of creative potential within the individual circuitry. And that in and of itself makes it sort of unpredictable and unstable, because creativity or being in that creative mode means that you're changing, you're moving, you're not the same from moment to moment. I mean, that's what's inherent in the creative process. So the individual survival skills in the gate 28 has to do with taking risks with life, that taking risks with life that have meaning. So you're finding meaning. We have the capacity as humans to find meaning in our struggles. And when we find meaning in our struggles, our meaningful struggles change lives. So the fear in the 28, if you're living on the fear frequency of this, is about your life having no meaning, like the fear of dying before you realize the meaning of your life. But when you're living in this place of the 28, which is also known as the gate of the game player, or the preponderance of the great, as it's known in the I Ching, you're in that flow of being able to take risks according to the meaning. And one of my friends put this very succinctly when she talked about this theme in the gate 28, which also has to do with like overcoming your struggles. You take risks to overcome your struggles. And when she was just talking about struggle in general, she just came out with this really wise thing. She said, just because I'm struggling and just because it's hard doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. And that could be the motto of this theme of the gate 28, engaging in what's worth doing and in a way where you overcome the struggles. With the gate 57, the 57 is known as intuitive clarity. And it is, when I looked at this, well, first of all, it's about the sixth sense, and it's about knowing, a knowing that's beyond thought. It's the gate of clairaudience, if you have it in your chart. But when I looked at it in the context of all of these other gates and all of these potential ways that we're hardwired as humans to survive, the gate 58 seemed to be the way out or the way up, the way out of our fears, the way up into the higher experiences of these survival skills. And it's the way to the self. And if I had the whole chart here, you would see that the 57 would move into the G center through the gate 10. So there's this potential connection when we follow our intuition, when we listen to our intuition, when we tap into our sixth sense, that we're really tapping into potentially our own individual direction. So, this being kind of the key that unlocks and moves us up through helps us to transcend our survival fears so that we can evolve into our survival skills through this ability to listen to our intuition, means that the gift of intuition can serve to alleviate our survival fear and anxiety. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit or read a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole thing. From the gene keys to sort of drive this home. Let me see. I'm starting on page 4. That's my note personally, 462. Okay, so the 57th gene key in its gift expression is known as intuition. The 57th gift of intuition is basically your body's system for interacting harmoniously with the outer world. It's the low frequency prenatal program that later interferes with the clear operation of your intuition. Although all illnesses were imprinted during the gestation cycle, they can be healed through directly raising the frequency of your DNA. This essentially resets or reboots your entire genetic operating system. That's why I'm feeling like this is the way through and the way out and up. The process of learning to again trust your intuition is nothing less than the dismantling of the illusion that you are separate from life. It is a return to the heightened sensitivity you had in your mother's womb. The more you widen this pathway inside yourself, the easier life becomes. Your fear and anxiety will persist in the beginning, but after some time, intuition will become more natural and powerful inside of you, as though an invisible force were overriding your old conditioned programming. So listen to your intuition to override, to eventually evolve into that place to override the conditioned programming of fear and anxiety. One of the great revelations you may have through the 57th gift is that fear is not inside you. It is a field that you may live in, pass through, or ascend beyond. Evolving your so-called sixth sense is the first stage in this process of vibratory ascension because it allows you to access the individual quantum field or collective unconscious. Now, we all have access to this. We all experience our intuition in different ways. And, you know, we have access to what it takes to survive in the big picture in all of these themes. And with the intuition, you know, we experience our intuition through the definition of our designs, through other people, and through the astrological transits through the gates. So the 57 can come to you in that way. You may already experience it, or you may also experience these other themes in different ways, these other higher level survival themes of these gates through these ways. So when you're understanding how we're equipped to evolve and survive as humans, first helps us to see that we're genetically designed to adapt and change to preserve ourselves, our communities, and our world. So I hope that when we went through the different types of circuitry, you could see, you know, those things that we're endowed with as humans, that support us in the ability to adapt and change, preserve ourselves as individuals, preserve our communities and our world. And it also helps when we understand how we're equipped to evolve and survive as humans. It also helps us to trust, it helps you or me as individuals to trust in your individual designs, natural place within the flow of life. So, you know, it comes to you, whether you're defined or undefined. You're going to experience these themes because you are human, and you have the opportunity to evolve these themes within you. And through your intuition, you can sort of you can have that opportunity to break free from those lower frequency patterns that keep you in fear. And when you break free as an individual and go with the flow of your life, then it affects everyone around you in a way where they have easier access to evolve their survival themes as well. So in other words, we have a pretty good chance as humans of not perishing on the planet, because humanity is hardwired with everything that it needs within each person, within you, within me, to survive and thrive. So we have, as the whole of humans, as the human race, as a human species, the ability to stick together, as we saw in the tribal themes, in the tribal survival skills. We have the ability to find solutions, as we saw in the collective survival skills, and we have the ability to create change through the individual survival skills. So your personal mission, if you choose to accept it, is to, first of all, trust your design. Remember that I said when you are really in the flow of your design, when you are in the flow of your own authority, then you are with the right people, you are in the right environment, and you will affect the right people with those pieces of the genetic puzzle that you're working with, in a way that helps them to not only survive but thrive, and to transcend fear and anxiety for themselves. So in order to do that, not only do you need to trust your design, but you also need to keep your vibration high. And that's, again, where getting back to your intuition, following your intuition, trusting your intuition. Doesn't mean you have to act on it, because there's always, you're waiting for that motorized, as that theme tells us in the 57, you're waiting for the motorized energy to act upon it in alignment with your authority, in alignment with the timing that you know is right for you. But when you keep yourself in those higher vibrations, you are going to have a better chance of surviving and thriving at a higher level. Okay, so I'm going to take the screen down very soon. Thank you guys for sticking with me. And I'm going to take a look at the chats, but I want to let you know what we're drawing for in my hat here. This is my favorite hat. I'll tell you why when I take the screen down. We're going to draw for my Splenic Authority course. And if you don't have Splenic Authority, you can choose another course, $60 value, or a 30-minute private session with me to maybe take a look at your spleen center, take a look at your design, maybe just make sense of what's going on in your life. And we're also going to draw for either an energy alignment light session or a human design overview reading. It is your choice what you would like. And those are the prizes for our celebration today. Okay, I'm going to get out of this. Bear with me so I can find you again. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Oh, Chris has 50. Responsibility. Hi, Ann Mawa, is it? And hi, Bridget. Jennifer, 44, 50, and 18. Awesome. So these are the themes. If you have those in your chart, these are the themes that you're radiating out. So when we're talking about raising your vibration, when we're talking about living the high side of your design and aligning with your flows through your strategy and authority, you have that ability to affect others in a very direct way through that definition in your chart, through the definition in those gates. Pamela, the Earth in the Gate 18, you've been telling everyone to take vitamin C. That is so awesome. Now, I don't know what your type or your type and strategy are, but I'm wondering if you were invited to do that because that is a projected channel. So, and if you're just telling everyone, maybe you're a manifester, you're just informing everyone. Um, I'm wondering how that is, how they're taking that. So, all right. So I'm gonna draw. Where are we on the time here? Thank you guys for sticking with me. Okay, I love this hat. Let me tell you why I love this hat. And I'm not a hat person, but I wear this hat. I love the embroidery or the applique there. And then I don't know if you can see that or if it's backwards, but there's a little thing inside, a little saying that says peace comes from within. And I love that. That is one of my mantras. In order for us to have peace in the world, we must have it within. And, when we master these survival themes, master these survival skills at a higher level and transcend that fear and anxiety that is part of what's on the planet, maybe part of what we're here to work with, then we can all start a peace movement from within. Okay. Anne, I want to answer your question. What are your thoughts about sound therapy? Well, interesting. I didn't say this, but that individual circuitry, the emphasis I put on the gate 57 is very auditory. And, sound and vibration has a very healing effect and can open us up. So, we're not solid beings. We just, our light moves so fast. Our light and energy moves so fast. Our atoms and all of that moves so fast that we look like we're solid beings. But just like the vibration of music, we are these vibrational beings that have come together in these shapes that we know as our bodies. So therefore, from that level of sound and vibration, we can open up to and shift what's moving, that's creating this illusion that we're these solid forms. So, sound therapy vibration release for the virus. Everyone needs to use their intuition on what to do in terms of sound therapy, and that, I'm kind of interested in that. I've actually used some free YouTube sound therapy recordings for viruses and colds and things like that, and for me they seem to have an effect. Okay, all right, without further ado. I have one more thing here. Barbara says, interested in weaving 57. Loads of folks have the gate 50 in their designs, which matches with the 27 in the transits at the moment. Yeah, I have that as well, that whole channel. So I'm cooking a lot because the 27, I have the 50 defined and the 27 is undefined, and I'm amplifying it in the transits. And that is the gate of cooking. Cooking and nurturing and nourishment and making sure everyone is fed. And I think for a lot of us, I can't remember what planet what planet's in the 57 or the 27, but it's really, for me, it feels like it's about transforming how we nourish each other, I guess. Okay, Okay, for the Splenic Authority workshop, here we go. Who's winning it? Dorothy. Woohoo! I don't know if you're, I don't think you're splenic, but we'll work it out. We'll work it out, Dorothy. Okay. All right. All right, 30-minute private session. Judy L. I don't know if Judy's on the line or not, but I will. I will make a note here and contact her. And for the energy alignment light or the human design overview, we'll work it out, Dorothy. Don't worry. And for those of you who don't know what an energy alignment session is, it's where I bring in some of my own intuitive work with the Akashic records, and I use your. I don't, with the energy alignment light, I'm not going deeply into a lot of the background research that I would normally do in the full session, but I touch upon your human design chart, the energy in your human design chart. I touch upon your hologenetic profile. I look at some of your soul gifts and where what your soul group characteristics are. And from there, an understanding of what you're about, all the way around, body, mind, soul, spirit, the whole thing comes forward for me. And then I call in your higher self, your guide team, the energies that are there for you. That one must be for the last one that popped out of the hat. And I translate those vibrational frequencies into a message for you that's pre-recorded. And then once we do that, then we have a meeting about it. Awesome. Thank you, Robin. Cynthia F gets the energy alignment light or the human design overview. Now, thank you. Those of you who registered, it was not for naught. Can't write and talk at the same time. Okay, got it. And I'm going to leave a link, if it's not already down, in the descriptions on Facebook and YouTube, where you can actually go and sign up. Not for another drawing, but if you sign up before I get the follow-up email out, which is thanking you and all of that, and with the links to the recordings in case you missed it or whatever. If you sign up before I get that out, which will probably be by Monday mid-morning, then you will also be notified of the exclusive specials that I give to people who are kind enough to sign up. And this also gives you access to my newsletter and a news for upcoming events and all of that. And if you decide you don't want to hear from me once a week or so, then you're free to unsubscribe at your discretion. I do not take that personally. So come and try us out, and come and sign up so that you get some extra help and support along your path of being a transformative force in the world. Whew. So any last minute comments before we call it an afternoon? I want to thank you guys so much for hanging in here and for participating and watching. I think I got the highlights from everyone's comments. I hope I didn't overwhelm you, but that's kind of what has been percolating in my abstract mind for a little while. And my contribution through my 5818 to correct patterns, or to share things that may assist you in identifying and correcting patterns. Yeah, cooking for you too. Yeah, the gate 27 in Uranus. Yeah, the planet of change and transformation, sudden changes and transformation. All right. Okay. Thank you, Robin. I'd love to see that link. Yeah, and for those of you who are wondering why I have my PayPal me link up here, I've been being highly encouraged to open up to receive donations for these kinds of things. So if you feel moved to make a donation, that's where you would do that. And if you're not in a place where you feel that you can do that, I'd really appreciate that you share this out. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel or like my page on Facebook, please go ahead and do that. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here and being part of my community. Have a good rest of your afternoon, everyone. Bye.